It's a good chance they probably knew who he was, considering the fact how they dealt with him. They dealt with him very casually, which means he probably was somebody that was known to them, and it's not the first time they've arrested him. Be sure to buy your copy of Before the Badge, everything you need to know before you become a cop. Available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wordsmatterpublishing.com. All right, continuing on with more evaluations that you sent me to look at. This is going to be graphic. 5 officers charged after black man paralyzed in police van. Remember, when I take a look at these videos, it's from 2 lenses. The number one is as a retired cop, right? If you know my background, if you haven't read, go get my book, Before the Badge, everything you need to know before you become a cop. Use of force instructor, tactics, defensive tactics, community liaison, FTO, NIPAS mobile field force, patrol officer. My background it's available for anybody to wind up finding out. I also want to look at this as from the lens of a citizen, because that's what I am. I'm a citizen. I don't want to arbitrarily just watch these Blue Lives Matter videos and just support the police. I support law enforcement, but I want to be critical to bridge the gap for improvement. That being said, if you're a police supporter, don't throw around that whole garbage shit of, oh, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You shouldn't have been there in the first place, or the police weren't called. That's not fucking helping the situation. And if you're anti-cop, explain why you're anti-cop. Let's solve the problem together. Don't be a pussy who comes in the comment section and say all cops are bastards and fucking pigs. We get it. You don't like them. Articulate your argument better, and let's have a meetings of the minds and solve this problem together. Let's move on here. This is an article that was sent to me. 5 officers charged after black man paralyzed in police van. Again, you know what? The media needs to go fuck off, because I want to start seeing 5 officers charged after man. Leave the race out of this shit. But it doesn't sell headlines, as we know that. Let's continue to vilify law enforcement out there. Never mind all the awesome things that law enforcement has done for the black community, who the white liberal seems to incessantly attack law enforcement for never paying any attention to. But I digress. I don't want to make this political, because both sides are fucked up as far as I'm concerned. Let's move on here. This is 5 Connecticut police officers were charged Monday with cruelly neglecting a black man after he was paralyzed, partially paralyzed, in the back of a police van despite his repeated and desperate pleas for help. I'm going to play the video because I'm not going to read this because I didn't see it, right? I can hear what they're typing in my head, but I don't know if that's the way it happened. I'm going to tell you, when I did the evaluation of the George Floyd video, there's something called incarceritis. I can't tell you how many times you put the bracelets on somebody, click, click, and all of a sudden, I can't breathe. I got to go to the hospital. I'll take both sides. Yes, immediately call for the paramedics. Don't let liability get you. If somebody you're taking into custody says they want to go to the hospital, let them go. You'll get overtime. Just shut your mouth and go with them. But I also know that the public thinks that the second they say, I want to go to the hospital, and they get transported, they're going to get let go. So I know how this game is played. A lot of you citizens don't. A lot of you police anti-supporters are going, well, the cops should have done X, Y, and Z. We hear it all the time from people. They just don't want to go to jail. They claim they have to go to the hospital. I'm not invalidating a claim for it. Maybe 9 times out of 10 it's valid, but there's always going to be that one time that turns into just a shit sandwich of where law enforcement it knows that they're playing games. I'm going to play this video. I'm going to watch it with you. We'll evaluate.
There is growing outrage over an incident in a police van in New Haven, Connecticut that left a man paralyzed and 5 officers under investigation.
The suspect in handcuffs was being transported when the officer driving made a sudden stop.
Now remember, I'm seeing the same details you are. I'm seeing the same news that you're seeing. I didn't research any further into this. I want to piece this together, and let's see what we see.
And the incident was caught on camera. We want to warn you the video is disturbing but important to this investigation. CBS 2's Jerika Duncan tracking the unfolding events.
Just hold up, okay?
All right, what's up?
Randy Cox was at a block party when New Haven police arrived in response to a weapons complaint.
I don't know what kind of tactic that was, just to let you know, where you're holding his hand like this. But what is that? Okay, what's you got? I'm not here to critique the tactics on that, but that's I don't know what the fuck that is, to be honest.
Block party when New Haven police arrived in response to a weapons complaint. Officers arrested Cox, who they say is an ex-felon and was carrying a firearm illegally.
All right, so weapons complaint. They have every lawful right to be there. If a citizen's complaining, says, hey, we want to see this. He's got a weapon on him. Great. If he's a felon, man, it's a good chance they probably knew who he was, considering the fact how they dealt with him. They dealt with him very casually, which means he probably was somebody that was known to them, and it's not the first time they've arrested him. So they probably already know his games if he decides to sit there and say, I need to go to the hospital because I can't breathe, all that kind of stuff, right? I'm setting the tone for the familiarity between police and the public. It's a relationship. There's a lot of you people out there think that this is just cut and dry. You don't understand the estate. Do you have kids? You guys have kids who are watching this? I don't. So if I babysat your kids and I'm like, go to bed, I can't. I have a headache. Would you know if your kids were fucking full of shit or not? Same type of thing. The more you wind up interacting with your public, you know who's full of shit and who's not. Let's continue.
As they were transporting him to jail, authorities say Officer Oscar Diaz was speeding and came to a sudden stop to avoid an accident. As a result, Cox's head is slammed against the back of the van, which had no seatbelt.
That's rough. Yeah, that's rough. Oof, that's rough.
Help! I can't get out!
I can't hear you!
Help!
Despite Cox's repeated calls for help, it took the officer almost 4 minutes to check on him.
Okay. Now, I'm not justifying anything. What's he supposed to do? Pull over on the road immediately? How many times do people cry for help? Does this cop know in the background that they're just, help, help? Open the back door. What? I just want to talk to you for a second. So the length of time, to be honest, 4 minutes doesn't bother me. Unless, and I don't have this information, unless there's an internal camera that will show, because with our squads, we did have the drop down, mini screen, so we could actually see front and back from people. So you just didn't, it was like looking in a rearview mirror, but it was being recorded the whole time. So I don't know if they have that system and he's like this and he can clearly see it. Yeah, that's an issue. Then I would support this, but I don't know. Maybe they'll say that. I don't know just yet.
Can you move at all?
I can't move.
Before calling an ambulance to meet him at the police station. When the van arrived, several other officers were waiting and began berating Cox to get out.
Move your leg. Sit up.
Why not listening, bro?
Sit up.
I can't move.
You're not even trying.
About 3 minutes later, they dragged Cox feet first out of the van.
Again, this is common. This is what I can't stand about the media. The time, the damage, this is an accident at this point. Unless the cop was, what he was speeding for, I don't know. There's going to be department policies on how to actually transport prisoners. Was he supposed to be seatbelted in? If there were legitimately no seatbelts in, that's a big fucking lawsuit for the city right there, especially in 2022 when this happened. Have seatbelts, especially if you're transporting people right there. Once they're in custody, they're in your care. The 4 minutes, no, doesn't really bother me. The 3 minutes to get him out doesn't bother me even more because we know the games they play. They have no, unless information is passed on, yeah, he hit his head. Don't touch him. Don't let the paramedics deal with him. Do not touch him. Makes it worse, right? So then you're looking at that aspect of it. I'm not bothered by the time. I'm bothered by what information they had at the time. So far, there doesn't seem to be anything indicating that the cops were aware of him being slid back off of that accident or the abrupt stop.
What's going on?
You ain't cracking. You just drink too much.
Before officers forcefully hoisted him into a wheelchair. Cox is processed and dragged into a holding cell about 10 minutes after the van arrived at the station. He was placed on the floor where an officer shackled his legs, but he couldn't move as he was paralyzed from the chest down.
Mr. Cox was mistreated. He should have received medical attention immediately.
Yeah, you know what? Here's what this, fuck you, Chief, and I'll give you this one. You're being a politician right now because you know exactly how the game is played between the citizens and the cops because you started out as one. You should have, the wrong choice of words. He was mistreated by who? Your officers? No, there's a lot of times you need to speak to somebody to the level of what they understand. And I can guarantee you, if Cox didn't, or it didn't hit his head at all, and he was drunk, and he was playing those games, then that's the exact treatment that they should have given him. You're not going to baby somebody. You're going to grown man. If it's a grown man, you're going to talk to him. Stop your shit. Knock it off. Get up. Blah, blah, blah. There are several people, and you know this, Chief, who like to play this game. I can't breathe. I can't get up. I can't move. If they had zero indication of this, what are they going to do? And the only thing they should have done is they should have called the paramedics. I have no idea why paramedics were not called to this. I would have sat there and said, screw it. Fuck it. You know, he's claiming this. I'm going to put the onus on the paramedics. Let them come do all their tests. But now all of a sudden, this is a police chief who's not siding on the way that their cops probably treat people all the time who deserve to be treated this way. And it's not punishment. It's you're talking to people at the level of what they need to understand. And some people are overgrown fucking babies that need to be spoken to this way.
We can't defend anything that was released.
Now, the 5 officers...
I just did. If he had no information and he was known to the police and he's a felon, not that that is his title, but if he has a past history, and let's just say that he was arrested 5 times before this, and this is what he did 5 times after this, or 5 times previous, then you have every justification to say, yeah, we're not going to baby and waste our manpower time here. We're going to put him in the cell. He had no visible signs of injury. He wants to go limp and fake like he is. They're not medics. They're not medics. They should have called the paramedics. That's what you can't defend. Should have said yes. On the initial statement of his complaint, they should have called paramedics to evaluate this. But as far as how they treated him, if all things being equal, pulling him out the way they did, talking to him the way they did, dragging him on the floor the way that's fine. I have zero problem with any of that.
Involved are on paid leave pending an investigation. This morning, Cox remains hospitalized in intensive care. Attorney Ben Crump is representing Cox's family as they pursue damages against the city.
We want criminal accountability.
No, the damages should be for the equipment. It should be for a department having outdated equipment. That's what that should be.
For those officers. But we also want to see policy changes.
Cox's sister...
What policy change do you want to see? The one I agree with should be, if it's not in place already, it should be seatbelts. I'll go with that policy change. And I will be with mandatory overtime for any officer who is in a position to where there needs to be medical evaluation done, right? So officers should not be worried about, well, crap, I got to do X, Y, and Z, or you should be able to call in other officers, say, hey, we got an overtime slot available because Officer Izzo has to go to the hospital with a subject who is complaining of they can't move. End of story. That should be a policy change. But let's, of course, hear this be about racism. Continue.
LaToya Boomer says she just couldn't finish watching the footage of how officers treated her brother.
It made me sick to my stomach. To treat somebody like that, at what point in time do you believe someone that's saying, I think my neck is broke?
Not for nothing. What'd your brother do to get a felon charge anyways? You want to talk about treating people? No, a lot of times you'll see on this channel, I'll be admonishing and just ripping the shit about police officers for how they wind up treating people. There are times where you need to speak to people the way that they understand, and they're going to play this game. I've had it firsthand, guys who are limp in the back of the squad car. One officer goes on one side, pushes, the other one grabs from the feet, pulls them out. Sorry, you guys what's that saying? You're going to need a tougher stomach if you want to see how the sausage is made. It's just how it is. This is not a cookie-cutter world for law enforcement.
The mayor's office announced several policy changes following the incident, including installing seatbelts in all police department. Yeah, fuck you, Mayor. That one should have been done a long time ago. Transport vans and requiring officers to buckle in detainees. Yeah, after Freddie Gray, was that him? The one from New York? That was what, 4 or 5 years ago? Policy should be, everyone be, our department had that policy about 10 years ago. Seatbelts were already required in police cruisers. Meanwhile, Trump said the family will seek a civil settlement from the city to cover Cox's medical care and lifelong injuries. Jerika Duncan, CBS News. I agree with that. I agree with that. I'm going to tell you flat out, I don't think it should have gone any further than that. There's no criminal charges warranted. Just because you don't like how he's been talked to, it is what it is. That video, it's hard. It came from an accident, right? It came from an accident. So if anything, maybe the officer should be investigated for why he was speeding in the first place and what the abrupt stop was. His mileage per hour, how much over was it? That should be investigated. But everything else, the way he was dragged out, mistreated, if you will, no, I have no problem
problem with what that is because I know how the game is played, and just sometimes people want to be big fucking babies in the first place, and you got to babysit. Hope that makes sense. Hit subscribe, like, let me know what you think in the comments. If you have anything that you need to send me for me to evaluate, you can send it to officerizzo@gmail.com, and I'll take a look at it there. You guys have a great day. Be safe out there.